because my background is sort of kind of merging from IT to business, right? I worked as a developer in India. I worked with a bunch of developers underneath me, as well as even over me, right? Guys who were programmers, guys who were artists, quality assurance testers, and the like. And the thing is, we worked on a lot of highly technical things, right? And often the biggest accomplishments I felt that I had was solving that one little glitch, or those few little glitches that was preventing our game from running. That really was something that was huge. We worked for days on something to try to meet a milestone where we can deliver it to our client. But ultimately, it's not really about the technical glitch. It's really when we're working as an IT guy, we're working with a development team. It's really about the process of how you went about solving the problem. Did you, when you identified there was an issue, something wasn't working, what was the process you used to find the solution? It's not just about going into the code. Maybe you assigned some work to one guy and assigned some work to another guy. Maybe you had a team meeting and you said, okay, let's break down how this particular piece of technology works, or whatever this particular issue is, and let's break down where the possible issues might be, where the problem might be, and then assigning appropriate tasks to different people to find out where where the issue lies. It's about how you go about solving the problem, right? It's about how you go about thinking about the problem that you want to put in your essays. It's a lot less about saying, I solved a cool problem that was a piece of code. It's not about that. It's about the process, about how you think strategically. And so, when I was doing my applications, I was really writing about that from a team perspective, saying, okay, you know what? I had 2 or 3 people I was working with, whether they were my peers or they were underneath me, right? And what I would talk about was when we hit a problem, okay, how did I assign the work? How did we go about finding a solution? How did I deal with the fact that we had a deadline in a week's time, but I figured it was going to take us 2 weeks to actually solve the problem? How do we divide the work? How do we divide and conquer? How do we deal with having to work overtime, working overnight, sometimes having to do 24-hour shifts? How do we manage that and keep everyone's motivation high? These are the kinds of things that you might want to focus on, coming from a tech background. Don't be shy about admitting that you're from IT or that you're an engineer. It's not about that. The key is how you present yourself. Business school ultimately is about leadership, right? They're looking for future leaders. They're looking for people who are leaders of today. That's what they want. So ultimately, regardless of your background, especially if you're from tech, right? That's how you want to position yourself. Position yourself as a leader, as a person who is an impact player. Don't focus on the technical nitty-gritties. Focus on the people. Focus on the process. I think that's one of the suggestions I would have, and that's what really helped me within my applications. Additionally, if you have any kind of client work, right, where you're actually speaking with a client, that can also help a lot, because that's one area where a lot of engineers will have some kind of a client that they're working with, possibly, but they may not talk about it. That's an area that's very important because it pushes the soft skills aspect, right, that I think Eric was talking about. So those are just a few things I would suggest that you guys can consider coming from that kind of a background.
I would add to this. So don't get lost in the jargon, and then look at what's going to make for a good story. So regardless of how many days and nights you worked on solving this problem, does it make for a good story? Sometimes this is not fair at all. You can work for 2 months on solving some issues, technical issues that involve other people, but does it make for a really good story? Sometimes you'll have an experience that will only last for a few days, but you can really milk this for a good story, and a good application is really going to be about good storytelling. So look for not just your successes and accomplishments, but your juiciest stories.
And the other thing that I would add for those with technical backgrounds, and really this isn't just specific to IT or engineering, but anything technical, whether it's finance or another field, is find someone, and this is going to be basic advice, but you'd be surprised how many people just don't do this. Find someone not from the same background to read your essays and your application before you submit. And if they can't understand what you're saying, if the stories aren't coming through to sort of call it a layperson in that field, then you really need to think about how to better portray and position yourself and explain yourself without relying on technical components of your field.